What's going on, everybody? My name is Mario. This is a channel all about amusement park type stuff, but mostly coasters. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the top 10 rides at Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
Let's talk about amusement parks, like rides and rides in the dark. Rides right here and rides all over, but mostly coasters, mostly coasters. We'll talk about all kind of things, but mostly coasters.
Busch Gardens Williamsburg is known for being one of the most beautiful theme parks in the world, but it's no secret that the park also features some world-class roller coasters. There are also plenty of other rides for families to enjoy, ranging all the way from small kiddie rides to thrilling water rides. But for this list, I am only going to be including rides that I have personally been on that are currently operating, so there will be a couple of noteworthy exclusions. Busch Gardens' newest roller coaster, Dark Coaster, opened earlier in 2023, so I obviously missed it on my 2022 visit to the park. It looks super fun, and I thoroughly enjoy that style of coaster, so I'm sure it would be on this list if I were to ride it. A ride that I have, however, ridden is Mock Tower, but 2022 was its final year of operation. This drop tower gave a gut-wrenching, stomach-dropping sensation and led to one of my most embarrassing clips on camera. I love a ride that can actually still scare me because that's not something that happens too often anymore. So this definitely would have been on my list if it were still open. But enough blabbering about what isn't on this list. Let's take a look at what is. Starting at number 10, Rhine River Cruise. This tame boat ride takes you on a scenic tour around the river that goes through Busch Gardens Williamsburg. While this isn't the most exciting ride in the park by any means, it is nice and relaxing. The Rhine River Cruise is a pleasant break from walking around and riding intense roller coasters all day, and then on top of it being a nice break, you do get some really unique views of the park's coasters, which is always fun if you are a coaster nerd like me. Coming in at the number 9 spot, we have Loch Ness Monster, which many would definitely consider to be the park's most iconic coaster. The main reason for that being the interlocking vertical loops, which are a sight to behold. It's not often that you get to see two loops going through one another. The actual ride experience itself is not quite on the same level as the coaster's breathtaking appearance, but it's still fun. You do have a couple of airtime-filled drops. Each of those interlocking loops are relatively forceful, and there is a mid-ride helix that is in complete darkness, which is neat as well. This coaster does, however, have a few downsides. Loch Ness Monster requires 2 lift hills to get you through the layout, and both take forever. In addition to that, the restraints are not very comfortable, especially for shorter riders having the potential for some serious headbanging. That being said, this attraction is actually going to get some upgrades for 2024. So I think there's a chance that both those problems get addressed, and I know that no matter what they do with it, this ride will be elevated, and I am definitely excited to see this classic attraction get some new life. Heading to another non-coaster, at number 8, we have Finnegan's Flyer. This is an S&S Screamin' Swing, which, for those unfamiliar, is basically just a giant swing set. And the gist of this ride is that it is just fun. Finnegan's Flyer takes you over 80 feet in the air with speeds up to 45 miles per hour, and you swing forwards and backwards, each way providing its own fun experience. On the forward swing, you are launched up towards the sky, and on the backward swings, you face nearly straight down at the ground. Almost each and every swing offers a great floating sensation, which is bolstered by a lap bar restraint that leaves your body feeling nice and unrestricted. This is a great, exciting ride that is not too intense and is again something that is fun to switch up a day full of coaster riding. But the rest of this list will be entirely coasters, starting with number 7, Tempesto. I'll go ahead and start with the obvious negatives of this ride, being that it is a clone that you can find at a lot of different parks, and that it has comfort collars that some people, including myself, find to be a bit of a nuisance and slightly hinder the ride experience. But this ride is definitely still chock full of positives. You have 3 launches, each of which gets progressively faster, one of which is backwards, and the fastest of which gets you to a top speed of 63 miles per hour. This ride provides some nice forces as well, with some intense positive G-forces pushing you down into your seat, a crazy pop of ejector airtime launching you out of your seat, and some good lateral moments throwing you side to side on a couple of the twists. But you cannot talk about this model of coaster without mentioning that slow motion inversion 150 feet in the air, because it is always fun to be dangling upside down out of your seat that high above the ground. Sailing into the number 6 spot, we have Invader. This Viking-themed wooden coaster is small but mighty. Its first drop is fully enclosed and goes slightly below ground, but only measures at 74 feet. Despite its relatively small stature, this coaster has plenty of airtime moments, quick direction changes, and best of all, it has fast pacing. And that's something that is pretty common for GCI roller coasters. Invader is always doing something, you're getting thrown around in every direction, and in addition to the profiling of the ride's elements doing that, the coaster being made out of wood adds to that awesome feeling of being out of control, without being rough. So even though this is far from the largest attraction in the park, definitely don't count it out. At number 5, we have another coaster that is somewhat unassuming in Verbolten. I was initially under the impression that Verbolten would be a tame family coaster, and while I do still think it is fun for all ages that are able to ride, it was significantly more thrilling than I had anticipated. Verbolten features 2 decently punchy launches, a floater airtime-filled drop that takes you down by the river, and a majority of the ride takes place indoors in the dark. This section is super fun, including some flashing lights, audio effects, and a surprisingly forceful helix. There is also a surprise in this indoor section, which I highly recommend going into without knowing about it, so skip ahead a few seconds if you don't want it spoiled. But this is arguably the best, or at least coolest part of the indoor section. There is a drop track, which gives you an awesome stomach dropping, free-falling sensation. So all in all, Verbolten is super dynamic, and it probably offers the most immersive coaster experience at the park. Aside from maybe Dark Coaster, but I wouldn't know. Next up is our first of 3 B&M coasters, Griffin. This is a massive dive coaster, and I think it is probably my favorite. Like any good dive coaster, Griffin dangles you over the edge, beautifully building anticipation before plummeting down the 205-foot, 90-degree drop, and then hitting a top speed of 75 miles per hour. There admittedly is not a whole lot to the rest of the ride, but there is more than other dive coasters. You get to go upside down 2 times, experience a second vertical drop taking you straight down towards the ground, and the whole ride ends with an awesome splashdown finale. It's fast, tall, but graceful, and you get some awesome sustained airtime in addition to fantastic visuals. What's not to love? Now getting into the top 3, we have the original B&M hypercoaster, Apollo's Chariot. This gentle giant of a coaster takes you on a relatively secluded journey through the Virginia countryside, filled with over a minute's worth of massive airtime hills. Each hill does a great job of floating you out of your seat, but no part of this ride is too intense. Even though it stands at over 200 feet tall and travels 73 miles per hour, it does so gracefully in a way that almost makes this relaxing. That is, if you are like me and find floating up out of your seat relaxing. Apollo's Chariot is smooth, long, scenic, and pure fun, all great ingredients for a joyous coaster ride. Now, to completely shift gears from pure fun to wildly aggressive, at number 2, we have Alpengeist. And this is definitely one of my favorite inverted coasters, if not my favorite. Alpengeist is crazy intense, featuring heavy positive G-forces and snappy transitions throughout the ride's 6 inversions, with this Cobra roll in particular featuring whip that is otherworldly. In addition to that intensity, I really appreciate Alpengeist for its massive scale. You don't really see other inverted coasters at this size. Alpengeist is the tallest B&M invert out there, standing at 195 feet tall, with the next closest being Banshee at 167 feet tall. That's a near 30-foot difference, so Alpengeist is enormous for this type of coaster. While this coaster is big and aggressive, it does share a couple similarities to Apollo's Chariot in that Alpengeist is also a long ride and scenic as well. There's a few moments where you go down by water with the adjacent river and a log flume. There are a couple of tunnels, and the ride finishes off with some snowy rockwork underneath you. So Alpengeist clearly has a lot to offer, but it's especially appealing if you like large-scale intensity. And now last, but certainly not least, coming in at the coveted number 1 spot, we have Pantheon. This is yet another multi-launch coaster, but it easily stands out amongst the rest. Pantheon features 4 launches, a backwards vertical spike, a 95-degree beyond vertical drop, and a ridiculous gargantuan outer banked airtime hill that forces you out of your seat for several seconds, all while being tilted sideways. And those are just a few of Pantheon's awesome elements. Every part of this coaster has something to offer, delivering a variety of forces to passengers. Pantheon has phenomenal airtime, both strong ejector and more mild floater, lateral forces that toss you side to side, and a couple of hang time moments dangling you upside down in the ride's inversions. Pantheon just stays busy, never lets its foot off the gas, and it also has a pretty long ride time where you are constantly doing something from start to finish. It is a truly phenomenal coaster. But that's it for this one. Let me know what some of your favorite rides at Busch Gardens Williamsburg are. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this. And make sure to tune in next time where I'll be talking about the top 10 bushes.